How we doing, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Wolf, and welcome to another League Starters video. It is that time again where everyone pumps out as many League Starter videos as they really can. In today's episode, I'm going to be covering 3 melee League Starters for you. These are SSF friendly, at least 2 of them are. One of them uses face breakers, but you can change it around to just use a normal weapon if you would like to instead. And they're going to be a little bit out of the ordinary, change things up for you, give you something a little bit more interesting as opposed to, you know, the standard dual wield melee builds that everyone really plays. We're going to be switching it up. We're going to be doing a little bit of an off the wall couple of builds. The last one is as safe as possible, but we're going to change things up just a little bit. So we're going to start off with my Sword, Shield, Reeve, Berserker. Now, the thing that I disliked about Path of Exile is that no one really played the old-fashioned tank characters, you know? The semi-slow, durable as hell, unkillable characters. Because, oh, they can't reach good damage. Well, you actually can through the new Berserker, and actually have a very tanky character at the same time. As a result, we wind up with my Sword, Shield, Reeve, Berserker clocking in at about 1.5 million DPS, and a pretty simple skill tree with a wasted point now that I realize it. Essentially, we are going for shield and one-handed modifiers. We pick up one-handed damage from strong arm, we pick up shield mods from things like aggressive bastion, since of course we are wielding a shield. We get sword nodes at razor's edge, and we get life pretty much anywhere we can, topping out at about 7k life, while also having very good damage. We also are going for 100% Impale, which gives us a bit of extra single target damage. You can't calculate Impale in Path of Building, to my knowledge, because it just doesn't seem to fucking work. And we're also getting Fortify amplifiers, just to make us tankier, because of course we are, why not? As well as we got Life and Golem's Blood, with just really good life regen in general. More shield modifiers, Master of the Arena for more life and life regen, Bravery, Art of the Gladiator for removing the movement penalty off our chest piece, Instant War Cries, just so we don't have to cancel our animations, Leech and one-handed damage, a Jewel there, attack speed, the Life Wheel, because of course we do, Barbarism for max life, Stamina for Endurance Charge, and the Endurance Charge down here more than likely if you have the spare points. As well as going Res Tech because I don't play crit very often, and this allows most of my builds to just work in the first place. So, long story short, where we get a lot of our damage from is the, excuse me, is the new Berserker stuff. Obviously, through Pain Reaver, we're able to get our Mana Leech, so take this node first more often than not. And then you can take Crave the Slaughter to gain Rage with attacks. As well as you can get Rite of Ruin to triple your Rage modifier, as well as be unstunnable while you have at least 25 Rage. Where Rage is kind of insane is you get 1% attack damage per 1 Rage, 1% attack speed per 2 Rage, and 1% movement speed per 5 Rage. This gets hilarious when those modifiers get tripled. Yeah. You can stack up to 50 Rage, and you get some pretty good damage. An Aspect of Carnage gives you even more damage, with a side effect of increased damage taken, but we are tanky enough that it's not an issue. So, that is the skill tree. To showcase the skills we're rolling with, we're running Reeve / Vol Reeve. I would just run Vol Reeve personally. With Brutality, Melee Fizz, Fortify, so Fortify's up 24/7, Pulverize, and Conk Effect, because Pulverize gives us extra AoE while also giving us a ton of more damage, Conk Effect being the best multiplier in the game, and Brutality because we don't really have any elemental mods, so might as well run it for the best damage results possible. Blood and Sand, cast when Immortal Call, which will basically make us immune to physical damage when it goes off, because we're sitting at 4 or 5 endurance charges, depending if you decide to take the node down here. This means we're basically physical damage immune, on top of a lot of HP and very decent block chance already. we're basically stacking survivability. So for any of you who want to play hardcore for the first time this league, since there's obviously the hardcore kill challenge, maybe take this for a spin. I don't know if it can take on the end boss, but you'll definitely live long enough, that's for sure. We have Vol Ancestral War Chief with Blood Rage and Berserk for single target if need be. Pop this on the boss and just lay into him with Vol Ancestral War Chief up. You can put Culling Strike in here as well for the War Chief if you'd like to. Then we have Leap Slam with Enduring Cry in here. Enduring Cry is going to be how we generate most of our endurance charges, as well as get extra life regen. We have instant War Cries, so it's not really an issue dealing with that. Then we have Cast When Stone Golem for 100 free life regeneration, because why not? Punishment Blasphemy for bonus damage, as well as increased attack speed on melee hit, and more melee physical. Obviously we're in the fray, so blaspheming our curse is fantastic, and we're running an Enlighten with Flesh and Stone in here as well. We're in Blood Stance most times. You can go Sand if you want more AoE, but I just normally leave it in Blood. And then we have a double guard because I'm fucking retarded, and Dread Banner. So we're gonna cut that, and Dread Banner tops out our Impale chance. Items wise, we have a rather simple and effective sword, a shield with good life and good armor, and decent block chance, and we have a helmet with reave damage because if you can manage to top it out, might as well. And then life and res basically on every piece. Pretty self-explanatory. And we get added fizz wherever we can. We got 2 steals with added fizz rolls. We have spiked gloves with added fizz rolls. Obviously this is chase gear, chase uniques, that sort of stuff. Well, the only real chase unique is Lion's Roar, but still. Otherwise, pretty much everything in this is attainable. Obviously top end gear is going to take a little while, but it's not entirely top end. You see, it's not entirely rolled up to the best pieces possible. I wanted to leave a little bit of room for, you know, possibility. But I can quite easily achieve all of this in solo self-found myself, so I'm more than sure you guys can, because some of you play more than I do, and I play a decent amount. Jewels, we run any form of damage, global fizz, attack speed, life percent. We're generally going for life percent like first, combined with any sort of damage modifier. Attack speed is fantastic in that regard. And that is pretty much my sword, shield, Berserker. I have played it in hardcore, had a very good time with it, just chugging along, had no issues, didn't die at all, and lost the character to a disconnect. So, yeah, I would have played it more, but obviously, died to disconnect and fucking lost the damn thing. Up next, we have my Blades. Words are fucking hard. Blade Storm Bleed Berserker. That one's always a mouthful and kind of awkward to say. This is a character that I've played very recently, actually, and had a fantastic time with. Now, it's not exactly the world's best bosser, and it's definitely a little bit out there in terms of concept, I suppose, because not a lot of people play bleed melee builds anymore, and for good reason. Bleed suits ranged a lot better than it does melee, but I decided, you know, let's make something a little bit off the wall. And Blade Storm looked really cool, it had bleed effects on it, and I was like, you know, let's just go for it. So it turned out it actually worked pretty well. It had good clear, and yeah, worked really well in tandem with Berserker. You would probably get more mileage going Duelist and picking up Gratuitous Violence to make bleeding enemies you explode. Fuck, words are really hard, man. Bleeding enemies you kill explode, dealing 10% of their maximum life as physical damage. I was hoping to get Hemophilias to drop, but they never did, so it kinda sucks, SSF life. But if you're in Trade League, you can pick up Hemophilias to give you this exact same modifier. Trade out whatever gloves you're wearing for Hemos instead, and you'll basically detonate the entire screen. It's pretty damn good. So, skill tree wise, I went for Res Tech first. I actually took these 3 and 4 nodes, and then took Res Tech, went all the way around, and then took them out. We go axes, and we go for basically anything that says damage with ailments from attack skills while wielding an axe. Bleeding damage you inflict deals damage 15% faster. Pick up every axe node, as well as Slaughter for free onslaught. This is one of the best nodes. And then just use axes, really. Red Storm for bleed. We have Bloodletting for more bleed. We have splitting strikes for damage, and we have two-handed nodes down at Wrecking Ball and Executioner. Have a decent amount of life, more life there, instant war cries, life up here, attack speed, 1 point jewel, and more two-handed damage. Pretty simple skill tree, pretty effective, as well as we have 100% Impale as well from Forceful Skewering, and the other Impale node down over here. And then we go for Berserker, or we pick up Pain Reaver first, then we go Crave the Slaughter for as much damage as possible, then pick up Rite of Ruin, and finally finish off with Aspect of Carnage to multiply our damage very, very nicely. Moving into skills, we're running Blade Storm with Melee Fizz, Ruthless, Chance to Bleed, Brutality, and Deadly Ailments. Fortify actually gives you more damage with ailments here, but I get Fortify through my Leap Slam normally, even though it's not in this setup. The way I played it on the character was I optimized it for Leap Slam to Fortify, because funnily enough, with this build, Leap Slam did so much damage it could kill trash in red maps. It's pretty good because the Leap Slam hits, then deals bleed damage, and everything falls over. It is really good, really good. So, in the next setups, we have Blood and Sand with an Immortal Call cast when damage taken. We have endurance charges from Enduring Cry and the Instant War Cries that I talked about previously. So as a result, we have soft physical immunity. We have like 45% physical damage reduction going off pretty regularly. You can also run Steel Skin if you want to, or Molten Shell. I found Molten Shell to be pretty decent as well. Then we have Vol Warchief, Blood Rage, and Berserk. You'll turn Berserk on, feel free. I didn't really use it personally, but if you want to, it's there. Then we have Cast when Stone Golem for life. Leap Slam, normally linked to Fortify, and Endurance Charge on melee stun, if you really want to take that route as well. And the Enduring Cry for the charges, obviously. Flesh and Stone with Blasphemy Vulnerability. If you wanted to take a very funny route, what you could go is all the way up here and pick up Whispers of Doom, or thanks to Blight League, anoint Whispers of Doom, and then run double Curses. I don't remember what the other one is, I believe it's Punishment, but I wasn't really able to do Blight content with this build. It didn't work all that well, so live and learn. Then we have Dreadbanner and a overlapped guard skill because I'm a fucking idiot. Dreadbanner tops out our Impale chance, and that's pretty much the skills. On to itemization. We have a pretty shitty axe in here, just to showcase its damage. If you wanted to play in Trade League, put on a disfavor, just call it a day. There is a Corroded Fossil craft that you can get that works really well for this build. If you can manage a Elder Vol Axe, although getting an Elder thing is going to get a lot harder in the coming league. But thanks to Delve and the Delve Fossils, there's a mod that says 60% chance for your bleeds inflicted with this weapon to deal 100% more damage, which is insane considering how bleed works. It takes the highest bleed possible and does its damage. It can't be replaced by a lower bleed. So say you hit the top modifier from the Axe mod combined with Ruthless, which also gives you bleed multiplier and more melee damage, and you get some pretty insane top end bleeds. I wasn't able to craft it myself, but if I sat down and farmed for like a day and a half, I could probably wind up with a decent weapon in regards to that. Then everything else is just kind of throwaway gear, life, res, pretty much everywhere. Fizz to attacks on the gloves with the spiked gloves, and Fizz to attacks on both rings. Basic leather belt. Lion's Roar for top end damage if you're looking for that. Obviously, bleed damage is a little bit weird to scale, but pretty much get bleed in the skill tree, and it scales off of your initial physical hit, so just build a big weapon. It's basically the way most Fizz builds work, is just build a gigantic weapon, or buy a disfavor, and you're probably going to be fine. One thing about Blade Storm before I end off this segment and this character, it doesn't scale up with weapon range. It only scales with AoE. That was a weird one to learn, but anything that says plus weapon range is not really worth it. Take AoE over it instead. And to round us off with the final build, let me find it here. we are going to be going for a Face Breaker Chieftain. I would very much so love to recommend my War Chief Berserker, but that build isn't possible anymore. You may be seeing some gameplay of it in the background. It is one of my favorite builds, and I absolutely adore playing War Chief. The only thing is that it's not really the best for SSF, provided you can't find face breakers. But if you do find them, you've basically got a free ticket to a very, very hyper powerful character for pretty much free. Because all of the other stuff that drops with it happens to drop pretty often, at least for me. Maybe it's my loot seed, who knows. Soul Mantle gives you an additional totem. I find this in Incursion pretty often. In the armor rooms it drops like fucking candy. And I've also just had a lot drop for me. I don't know why, they just keep dropping, and it just... I'm not gonna argue, I guess, but still. Dyed Bell is a helmet that I've grown to hate using it on other builds, but on this build it works exceptionally well for added fizz to attacks. The way Face Breakers works, if you aren't aware, is you get more unarmed physical damage. More is a multiplier. So obviously we want an added base for it to multiply off of. So we go for double steel rings, blood grip, dyed bellow, a shield with +1 totems from Shaper. Isn't going to be as achievable in Conquerors of the Atlas, but it should still be manageable if you want to really try for it. And then we run Meganords for added fizz to attacks. If you can't run the Tower Shield, you can also run Great One's Ward for more physical damage to attacks. Obviously, it's a damage boost to have more totems, but if we can't manage that because of the way they changed all the influences, then Great Old One's Ward works just fine as well. The only problem with this build is res capping is kind of a bitch. As a result, you may want to path through Diamond Skin, and we do here. You can also go Alira if you really feel like you're going to have a lot of problems. This one is kinda heavily unique dependent, but if you can't find a Soul Mantle, feel free to run an Astral Plate with a bunch of resists on it, and that will cap you out until you find Soul Mantle later on, and you can work towards putting this on and changing around your skills and your gear and whatnot to res cap you. You can quite easily get decent resists on your rings. That's going to be where you want to aim for, as well as your boots. And the Astral Plate if you're going that route instead. Skill tree wise, go Res Tech, Ancestral Bond, and Avatar of Fire. Pop down over in Chieftain, we pick up Nagamu's Flame Advance for 100% Fizz to Fire conversion, and every 10 seconds gain 100% of physical damage as extra fire. That doesn't really math that well in Path of Building, but it's a fantastic multiplier. The other thing we can pick up is Tukahama's War Herald, which gives us damage dealt by your totems is leached to you as life, which basically makes you fucking unkillable. Trust me, it's wild. Then we also have Ancestor Totems of 100% increased activation range, which is kind of odd, but it essentially means you can run like half a screen away from the totem and still have it do damage. Because what you'll find with War Chief is you'll place it, and if you run off screen, it deactivates. So this kind of gets around that sort of scenario. Then we pick up Hinakora's Death Fury for fire damage leached as life, and chance to cover rare or unique enemies in Ash. This node's kind of not that great, but we also get Moon Presence here, which makes it so the totems are immune to fire damage, and enemies near your totems take increased physical and fire damage. Now, not only is this good on its own, it also makes your totems reflect immune. This means you can run Fizz Reflect and Fire Elemental Reflect with no worry whatsoever, because they're dealing 100% fire damage, and they're immune to fire damage, so they can't reflect themselves and kill themselves. You don't have to worry about any of that sort of stuff. This build scales a lot of damage off of shield multipliers, as well as totem multipliers in the skill tree. So we have a little bit of totem placement speed, totem damage, shield damage right here. You can take shield damage here if you also would like to. Get a decent amount of life, as well as some good life leech and attack speed. Elemental damage up here. Grab Ancestral Bond, obviously. Spiritual Aid is actually a really good node for melee builds. And this also means you can use a minion helmet if you want to. I know it looks a little bit odd, but trust me, it's actually quite good. We get AoE to make our AoE larger, Shamanistic Fury for totem damage and totem placement speed, as well as Explosive Impact for AoE and fire damage, and then we come up top for Heart of Flame and Breath of Flames, as well as our last little bit of life. Pretty simple all in all, and pretty effective. Obviously I covered the itemization. Lion's Roar to top out for as much damage as possible, if you can manage to drop one of them. And in the skills we have a Vaughn's Sister War Chief, damage with attacks, Conk Effect, melee fizz damage, elemental focus, and added fire. There's as much elemental damage as we can really muster. Enduring Cry, punishment blasphemy for as much damage as we can really get, since we are going to be in the fray pretty often. And then Herald of Purity for more raw added fizz. This is the best you can get for the build, pretty much. Pride isn't bad either, but I think this is a little bit better. Vol Haste, just to enable the haste, since it's an aura, which also affects your totems. Give your totems bonus damage. You can run Anger as well if you want to take that route as well, but Herald of Ash is pretty fantastic. It's a lot of extra damage with Fizz as extra fire. And to round us off, we have Cast When Stone Golem. That is going to be 3 builds, 3 melee league starters that are pretty SSF friendly. The last one, not so much, obviously, because you do need a few prerequisites. But if you want to play that build, I'd recommend playing it in Trade League, or if you get Facebreakers to drop. It's basically a free character. Works pretty damn well, in my opinion. I've played multiple incarnations of Facebreakers. They've all been pretty foolproof, so don't worry, I believe in you. That's going to be all from me, and as always, take care, gentlemen.